It was an ordinary Tuesday evening when everything changed. I had just finished work a bit earlier than usual and decided to stop by the grocery store. As I approached the front door of our house, I noticed something strange. Emma's car was parked in the driveway, but there were no lights on inside. Odd, I thought she was supposed to be home already. But it was too quiet. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house was eerily silent, except for the faint sound of muffled voices. Coming from the living room, my heart skipped a beat, and for a split second, a cold sense of unease washed over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. As I stepped closer to the living room, I could see the faint glow of a television screen. But then I froze in my tracks. There she was, Emma, sitting on the couch, her back to me. And beside her there was a man. A man I didn't recognize, his arm draped casually over her shoulder, laughing in a way that sounded too intimate, too comfortable for a moment. Time seemed to stop. My heart pounded in my chest, and I felt a mixture of disbelief and anger rising inside me. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. I hadn't expected this, not now. Not like this, I cleared my throat loudly, and Emma froze, her head whipped around. In an instant, her face draining of color when she saw me standing there. The man beside her jumped his feet, visibly startled, and quickly pulled away from her, his eyes darting between Emma and me. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice colder than I intended, but I couldn't help it. My entire body felt tense with fury. Emma stammered, trying to stand up. I can explain," she said, her voice shaking. But I wasn't sure I wanted to hear it. The weight of the situation hit me then. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was betrayal. My wife had been lying to me. I stood in the doorway, frozen. The man who had been sitting next to Emma looked at me nervously, clearly realizing the situation had escalated quickly. I could see the awkwardness in his eyes, but it didn't matter. My focus was entirely on Emma. How could she do this? How could she let things get so far? "Who is he?" I asked again, my voice barely above a whisper, my anger boiling beneath the surface. Emma hesitated, her lips trembling as if she were trying to find the right words. He's just someone I met recently," she started, her voice faltering. "I didn't want you to find out this way." Her eyes locked with mine, filled with both guilt and fear. "Please let me explain. I repeated the word, tasting bitter on my tongue. "What could you possibly explain, Emma? I found you here with him. I've been married to you for years. And this is how you repay me." She stood up, walking slowly toward me. "I never meant for it to happen like this," she said, reaching for my arm. But I pulled away. It was a mistake, and I regret it. "Please, you have to believe me. I never stopped loving you. It didn't mean anything." I felt the sting of her words. "It didn't mean anything?" I asked, my voice trembling with disbelief. "But it's not about that, is it? It's about the fact that you betrayed me? You lied to me. How many times have you done this? How long has this been going on, Emma?" Her face turned pale. She could barely meet my eyes. "A few months," she whispered. "It started innocently, just talking. But it went too far. I don't know what happened. But it was my fault. I am so sorry." I took a step back, my mind racing. "You're sorry," I said, my words coming up bitter. "Sorry doesn't fix this, Emma. Sorry doesn't undo the hurt you've caused. How can I even look at you the same way again?" I could see the tears filling her eyes, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. Not now, not after what I just discovered. Her guilt and remorse only made the situation more painful. She reached out again, but I stepped back. "Please just leave me alone," I said. "I need time to think after the confrontation." Emma left the house to give me space, but I couldn't shake the images that kept running through my mind. I sat on the couch for hours, feeling like I was drowning in a sea of emotions. Anger, betrayal, confusion, and even a strange sense of disbelief. How could she do this to me? How would I miss the signs? I thought back to the little things, the late nights at work, the sudden excuses, the way she seemed distant lately. It had all been there, but I had chosen to ignore it. I had trusted her completely. and now it felt like that trust had been shattered beyond repair. The weight of it all was crushing. I had always believed in love and loyalty. But now I felt foolish. I had built my life around Emma. Our plans for the future, our shared dreams. And now in one devastating moment, everything had changed. I wasn't sure who I was anymore or who Emma was. I spent the next few days trying to make sense of what had happened. I didn't want to talk to anyone. Not friends, not family. I kept everything bottled up, afraid of breaking down in front of anyone. I felt like a failure. How could I have let this happen? How would I not seen the signs? Emma called me multiple times. Sending text after text, she pleaded for me to talk to her, to listen to her explanation. But I couldn't bring myself to respond. Each time I saw her name on my phone, I felt a wave of nausea. I wasn't sure I could face her again. What was there to say? How could I ever look at her the same way? I knew Emma was genuinely remorseful. Her apologies were constant and sincere. But how could I trust them? How could I trust her? The thought of continuing in a marriage where trust had been broken so deeply seemed impossible every time I thought about it. A part of me wanted to walk away completely, to never look back, but another part, the part that still loved her, wanted to try. I was torn between the man I once was and the man I was becoming. The days dragged on, each one feeling heavier than the last. I couldn't escape the reality of what had happened. The house that once felt like a sanctuary now felt cold and unfamiliar. Every corner reminded me of the betrayal. Every memory of our life together was tainted. I had never imagined I would find myself here, questioning everything about the woman I had married, the woman I had trusted above all else. Emma continued to apologize, but nothing she said seemed to reach me. Each apology felt like another empty promise. I watched her break down time and again, begging for forgiveness, but it didn't change the fact that she had crossed a line that, in my mind, couldn't be undone. I had heard every explanation, every excuse, but I didn't know if I could ever forgive her. One night as I sat at the kitchen table, Emma sat down across from me. Her eyes were red from crying, her voice weak from the countless apologies she had already given. She looked different, broken, vulnerable, but I still couldn't find it in me to offer comfort. I know you don't want to hear this, but I need you to know that I will do anything to make this right, she said quietly. I know I destroyed your trust and I hate myself for it. But I love you, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to prove that. I looked at her, feeling numb. The woman sitting in front of me was a stranger, a woman who had chosen someone else over me. Her words echoed in my mind, but they didn't hold the same weight anymore. I don't know if I can keep doing this, I finally said, my voice strained. I don't know if I can keep pretending like everything is fine. Like I don't feel like a fool for trusting you. Her face crumpled in desperation. Please don't say that, she whispered. I can't lose you, I will change. Just give me a chance to prove it. But the truth was, I didn't know if I could believe her anymore. The pain had sunk so deep that I wondered if it would ever fade. I stared at her for a long time, my heart heavy, knowing that this was the moment I had been dreading. The moment where I had to decide, I don't think I can do this anymore. Emma, I said, my voice shaking. I don't think I can keep living in a lie. The days after that conversation felt like a blur. Emma had left the house to stay with her sister, giving me the space I needed to think. I had never imagined that I would be facing such a painful decision, whether to try and rebuild a marriage that had been shattered, or to walk away and start fresh. The silence in the house was deafening. I had spent countless hours replaying everything in my mind. Emma's betrayal, the lies, the man she had chosen over me. I thought about the future we had talked about for so long, the life we had built, the plans we had made together. It all felt like a distant memory. But despite everything, a small part of me still clung to the hope that we could find a way back. Was it possible to rebuild trust? After it had been completely destroyed, could I forgive her? Or was I just holding on to a past that no longer existed? One evening, I decided to meet with Emma. She had been texting me nonstop, pleading with me to hear her out one last time. I agreed, though I had no idea what I expected to hear. We met at a small cafe, the place where we used to go on our first dates. It felt strange sitting across from her, the woman I had once trusted with my heart. She looked tired, her face pale, but there was something different in her eyes, a sense of acceptance, as though she finally understood the gravity of the situation. "I've been thinking about everything." Emma began, her voice quiet. "Almost fragile. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. And I know that I've lost you in more ways than one. But if there's even a small chance for us to rebuild what we had, I'm willing to do whatever it takes." I stared at her, trying to read the sincerity in her eyes. I could see that she was truly remorseful. But the question remained, could I ever trust her again? After a long pause, I spoke. "Emma, I don't know if I can go back to what we had. What you did, it broke something inside me. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you fully, but what I do know is that I can't keep living in this limbo. I need closure, and with that, I realized that it was time to move on. The relationship we had was gone, and no amount of apologies could undo the damage. I had to let go for my own peace. For my own future, I had to choose myself.